Alex had always dreamed of exploring the unknown. Since he was a child, he had stared at the night sky, imagining what life might exist beyond Earth. Now, standing on the metallic floor of the human exploration ship Endeavour, he felt a thrill of excitement he had never felt before. The mission was simple in theory: investigate a strange signal coming from a distant, uncharted planet. But Alex knew that simple could easily turn into danger in space. The Endeavour pierced through the dense atmosphere of the planet, its engines humming softly. Outside the viewport, a landscape unlike anything Alex had ever seen stretched for miles. The ground shimmered with colors that seemed alive, hues of violet and green that pulsed faintly as though breathing. Towering crystal formations jutted from the terrain, reflecting light in 1,000 directions. Strange alien plants waved gently despite the lack of wind. "Almost ready to land," said Commander Hayes, his voice calm but firm. He was a veteran of many missions, and Alex often found his steady presence reassuring. "Scans show minimal atmospheric hazards. We should be able to set down safely." Alex nodded, gripping the edge of the viewport. His heart raced. Something about this planet felt different. Not just alien, but alive. It was as though the land itself watched them as they approached. The landing was smooth. The Endeavour's legs touched the crystal-like surface, and the ship shuddered slightly. Outside, the landscape stretched endlessly, a mix of jagged crystal towers, glowing flora, and deep valleys that seemed bottomless. Alex adjusted his suit, checking his equipment. "Team Alpha, move out," Hayes commanded. "Stay close. Keep comms open, and Alex, stay sharp." Alex's jaw tightened. He wasn't the most experienced, but he was determined to prove himself. He led the small team through a narrow valley where the crystal formations rose like walls. Their scanners picked up faint energy signatures, artificial but ancient. Someone had built here before and perhaps still lived here. As they approached a clearing, Alex stopped short. In the distance, a structure rose from the valley floor, partially hidden behind crystal spires. It was massive, unlike anything humanity had built. Towering arches of polished stone intertwined with glowing energy conduits. The entire palace seemed to hum with power. "Commander, you're going to want to see this," Alex said into his comms. Hayes' voice crackled back. "I see it. Stay cautious. We don't know who or what built this." The team approached the palace carefully. The closer they got, the more alive it seemed. Strange glyphs on the walls glowed softly, as if reacting to their presence. The air shimmered faintly like a heat wave, but cooler, more serene. Alex's pulse quickened. Something about this place was majestic, not just alien, but regal. It was impossible to explain, but he felt that whoever had built this place had intended it to inspire awe. Then, they entered the main hall. It was enormous. Towers of crystal and metal intertwined to form a vaulted ceiling. The floor shimmered like liquid glass. At the far end, on a raised dais, sat a figure. Alex froze, his breath catching in his throat. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. The Queen. Her skin was pale with a subtle golden glow. Her hair fell like liquid silver over her shoulders. She wore intricate ceremonial robes that shimmered in the hall's light, adorned with patterns that seemed to shift as he looked at them. She held herself with unmatched poise, every movement deliberate, every gesture measured. Her eyes, large and luminous, were like twin pools of light, filled with intelligence, caution, and authority. Alex's mind struggled to process the sight. He whispered, almost to himself, "She's the most stunning queen I've ever seen." For a moment there was silence. Then she slowly turned toward him. Time seemed to stop. Her gaze met his, and Alex felt an overwhelming mixture of awe and fear. It was as if she could see into his thoughts, judging him in an instant. She did not speak, but the weight of her presence pressed on him like gravity. "Stay calm," Hayes' voice echoed in his earpiece. "Remember protocol. Don't make sudden movements." Alex swallowed hard. He raised his hand slightly, a gesture of peace. "We come in friendship," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. The Queen's lips moved, but no sound came out. Then, almost imperceptibly, a thought entered Alex's mind. It was clear, deliberate, yet gentle. "Who are you, human? Why do you come to my world?" Alex blinked. Telepathy. He had read about alien communication methods, but experiencing it was something entirely different. "I am Alex," he replied in his mind. "I come from Earth. We received signals from this planet. We meant no harm." There was a pause. Then another thought. "Few humans reach here. You are bold or foolish. Perhaps both." Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. I am not here to fight. I only want to understand, to learn. The queen's gaze softened slightly, though her posture remained regal. She rose from her dais, gliding across the floor with an elegance that seemed impossible. Every step was precise, controlled, and mesmerizing. Alex's team instinctively fell back, giving her space. She stopped several meters from him, tilting her head slightly as if measuring him. Then she spoke aloud, her voice melodic and powerful, carrying through the hall like music. You have crossed the void to reach my world, human. Few dare, fewer survive. Why do you seek me? Alex swallowed. He straightened, trying to match her calm authority. We seek knowledge. We seek understanding. And, perhaps, friendship. The queen studied him for what felt like an eternity. Then she moved to a nearby console, pressing her delicate fingers against glowing symbols. Holographic images flickered to life, maps of the planet, energy flows, and historical records of her people. Alex realized she was showing him her world, not just testing him with words, but inviting him to see it. As he observed, he noticed the depth of her wisdom. She was not just beautiful, she was brilliant, commanding, and aware of every detail around her. His admiration grew, tempered by respect. A sudden vibration shook the floor. Alex and the queen turned toward the source. Outside in the distance, dark shadows moved across the crystal plains, large shapes fast-moving. The sensors on Alex's suit registered them as unknown life forms, possibly hostile. The queen's eyes narrowed. She raised her hand, and energy barriers shimmered into existence around the palace. Her gaze returned to Alex, now calm but serious. You are not used to danger, human. But here you will need courage, Alex nodded. I am ready to help, he thought, not speaking aloud. For a moment, the hall was silent again. Then, almost softly, the queen spoke. You may stay, human. For now, but you must learn, and you must prove yourself. This world does not yield its secrets lightly. Alex's heart leapt. Thank you, he whispered aloud, though he knew she could hear his thoughts better than his voice. The rest of the team began to cautiously explore the hall, scanning the walls and artifacts. Alex stayed close to the queen, observing everything. She moved gracefully, touching objects as if she could sense their history and purpose. He realized that this place was not just a palace, it was a repository of knowledge, culture, and history. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The queen spoke little, but her presence was commanding. Every word, every gesture carried weight. Alex began to feel that understanding her world would be the greatest challenge of his life. As evening approached, the alien sun cast long shadows across the palace. Alex stood near the entrance, watching the queen as she finally paused to observe the horizon. She turned slightly, her luminous eyes catching his gaze again. This time the look was less of judgment and more curious. Alex's pulse quickened. He whispered once more, almost to himself. She's the most stunning queen I've ever seen. This time there was no pause. She slowly turned fully toward him, her gaze holding his. It was a silent acknowledgement, a recognition that the human before her might be different, might be worthy. In that moment, Alex felt the weight of destiny pressing upon him. He had crossed the stars, reached a world untouched by humans, and faced a queen unlike any being he had ever known. What lay ahead was unknown, but one thing was clear. His life, and perhaps humanity's place among the stars, was about to change forever. And as the alien sun dipped behind the crystal towers, Alex took a deep breath. He was ready to step into the unknown. The morning sun of the alien world rose slowly, casting long shadows across the crystal spires that surrounded the palace. Alex woke to the quiet hum of the palace's energy fields. Unlike Earth, the air here felt alive, almost as if the atmosphere itself was aware of his presence. He stretched, feeling the tension of yesterday's long exploration. Every step he had taken in the palace had been cautious, measured, yet awe-filled. Alex, Commander Hayes' voice crackled softly in his earpiece. Are you up? We'll begin the day's survey soon. I'm ready, Alex replied, still staring out at the crystalline horizon. Something about this planet stirred his curiosity more than he had ever imagined. The palace, the queen, the energy, everything seemed connected like one living organism. The day began with careful exploration of the palace grounds. The alien queen, Lyra, had agreed to allow Alex limited access under supervision. At first, she kept her distance, observing him with those large, glowing eyes that seemed to measure not just his actions but his intentions. Alex knew he had to earn her trust. Every movement, every word, every choice mattered. As they walked through a corridor lined with shimmering glyphs, Alex noticed subtle patterns in the walls. Some glyphs pulsed softly, responding to his proximity. He reached out cautiously and a small holographic map of the planet flickered to life. Lyra's voice, melodic yet firm, resonated in the hall. "You are perceptive, human. Few notice the details. Tell me, what do you see?" Alex studied the map carefully. "I see energy flows. Your civilization seems connected to them. It's like the planet itself powers your technology." Lyra's eyes gleamed. "Correct. You understand more than most visitors. But understanding is only the first step," Alex nodded. "I want to learn. I want to help." She regarded him silently for a moment, then motioned for him to follow. They entered a chamber filled with ancient artifacts. Some were delicate, floating slightly above their pedestals, glowing softly. Others resembled machinery, but unlike anything Alex had ever seen, each object seemed to carry a history, a story waiting to be understood. "You must see with your mind as well as your eyes," Lyra said, her words echoing in his thoughts. "Every object has purpose, every purpose has meaning." Alex knelt beside a small device that resembled a cube of crystal, about the size of his fist. He touched it lightly, and a holographic display appeared, showing a scene of the planet long ago, cities, flying vehicles, and beings that looked like Lyra's people, engaged in complex rituals in daily life. "They are beautiful," Alex whispered aloud. He had expected technology, but not this depth of culture, this combination of artistry and science. Lyra's gaze softened slightly. "You appreciate more than knowledge. You notice beauty. That is rare." Alex felt a strange warmth in his chest. It wasn't just admiration for her world, it was admiration for her, for the intelligence and grace she displayed. Yet he reminded himself to remain cautious. This was not a personal visit. It was a diplomatic exploratory mission. One misstep could have disastrous consequences. Hours passed. Alex followed Lyra through winding halls and open courtyards. Along the way, she demonstrated subtle ways of interacting with her technology. How her energy fields could manipulate objects, how thought and intention could communicate with machines. Alex marveled at the elegance of it all. On Earth, even the most advanced machines required input devices. Here, intention and understanding were enough. During a break, Alex and Lyra sat on a raised platform overlooking a garden filled with glowing flora. The plants pulsed with energy, responding to subtle vibrations in the air. Alex reached out and touched one of the flowers, and it opened slowly, revealing intricate layers of translucent petals. "They respond to emotion," Lyra said softly, her voice carrying a note of pride. "Our people learn to live with the planet, not against it. Harmony is the key to survival." Alex looked at her, realizing that her beauty was more than physical. It was her wisdom, her patience, her awareness of the world around her that made her remarkable. He had expected to be impressed by her appearance, but he found himself even more captivated by her mind. Suddenly, a sharp vibration shook the platform. Alex instinctively dropped to one knee, scanning the surroundings with his suit sensors. Far off, near the edge of the Crystal Valley, dark shapes moved across the terrain. They were large, humanoid, but their forms were distorted, hostile, alien. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Enemies. Commander, we've got company," Alex reported through his earpiece. He realized his own voice sounded steady, though his heart raced. "Stay calm. Assess first, act second," Hayes replied. Lyra stood, her posture commanding. Energy barriers flickered into existence around the platform. She raised her hand, and Alex watched as subtle threads of light extended from her fingertips, scanning the attackers. "They are advanced, but not coordinated. Their intent is aggression, not diplomacy," Lyra conveyed in his mind. Alex nodded, understanding her words. "We need to defend without escalating." "Exactly, but we must also observe. I need to know if humans can act with precision under pressure," she thought. Alex glanced at the dark figures now approaching closer. He noted their movements, predicting where they would strike first. With Lyra's guidance, he directed his team to positions that would allow them to protect the palace while minimizing harm. The first confrontation was swift. The attackers moved in large, sweeping motions, but Alex used his knowledge of tactics to anticipate their paths. He dodged a strike, countering with an energy net from his suit. Several attackers were trapped, struggling against the invisible bonds. Lyra observed, her eyes shining with approval. Impressive. You adapt quickly. Your species may yet have value here. The remaining attackers hesitated, confused by the humans' cleverness and the Queen's energy barriers. Alex took advantage, signaling his team to advance strategically. Within minutes, the threat was neutralized, not by brute force but by intelligence and precision. Lyra approached him once the danger had passed. She studied his face, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, her lips curved in what could only be described as a faint smile. "You are not like the others," she said. "You are brave, but more importantly, you are clever. That is rare among humans." Alex bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I thought was right." "Rightness is not enough," she replied. "Understanding is the key. You begin to grasp it, but much remains." After the confrontation, Lyra invited Alex to her council chamber. There, holographic images of the planet's history and her people's culture were displayed. She spoke at length about the rival factions, the threats to her rule, and the delicate balance that kept her people safe. Alex listened, absorbing everything. He realized that his presence on this world was more than exploration. It was entering a web of politics, history, and responsibility he had never anticipated. "You will need to understand more than technology," Lyra said as she guided him through the holograms. "You must understand people, their fears, their desires, and their motivations. Only then can you help," Alex nodded. "I am willing to learn." "Then you will begin tomorrow," she replied. "The lessons will not be easy, and the tests will challenge everything you know about yourself." As the day ended, Alex returned to his temporary quarters within the palace. He looked out over the crystal city, now bathed in the glow of the planet's setting sun. He reflected on the Queen, her intelligence, and her beauty, not just her physical appearance, but the wisdom and strength she radiated. He whispered to himself again, almost involuntarily, "She's the most stunning queen I've ever seen." In that moment, Alex realized that his mission had changed. He had not expected to meet royalty, to encounter political intrigue, or to face real danger so soon. And yet, despite the uncertainty, he felt a deep sense of purpose. Lyra, watching from her private chamber, felt a subtle curiosity toward the human who had so quickly adapted to her world. Few outsiders survived long enough to understand even a fraction of her civilization. Alex had done more than survive. He had engaged, learned, and acted with courage. She wondered quietly if humans, often underestimated, might have a role to play in the future of her people. That night, the palace settled into quiet. Energy fields pulsed gently, maintaining balance across the crystal spires. Alex lay awake, thinking of the trials that awaited him. He knew the Queen's approval was only the beginning. He would need to prove himself further, not just in courage but in wisdom, understanding, and empathy. And somewhere deep inside he felt a connection, fragile yet undeniable, between himself and the Queen who had so quietly observed him. It was not just fascination with her beauty, but with her mind, her strength, and the weight of the responsibility she carried. Tomorrow would be the first real test, and Alex, though uncertain of what lay ahead, was determined to rise to the challenge. He would learn, adapt, and perhaps earn the trust of the most stunning queen he had ever seen. The stars above shone brightly through the palace's crystal ceiling, reflecting in Alex's eyes. Somewhere beyond those stars lay the vast unknown, but for now his path was clear: to survive, to understand, and to prove that humanity could meet the challenges of a world far beyond their own. And with that thought, he closed his eyes, preparing for the journey that would begin at dawn. The next morning, the alien sun rose with a golden hue, casting long shadows across the crystalline palace. Alex stood at the edge of a wide courtyard, waiting. Today was the day Lyra had promised would test his courage, intelligence, and compassion. Though he had survived the minor threat the previous day, he knew this trial would be far more challenging. Lyra appeared silently at the far end of the courtyard. Her robes shimmered as she moved, and her eyes glowed faintly in the morning light. She regarded Alex with a careful, assessing look. "Today you will prove more than bravery, human. You will show the strength of your mind, your heart, and your will." Alex nodded, swallowing his nervousness. "I'm ready," he said aloud. though he knew his words were more for himself than for her. "Then follow," she commanded, and he did, keeping his eyes on her as they walked toward the outer gates of the palace. Beyond the walls, the landscape of the planet stretched in all directions. Mountains of crystal, forests of glowing plants, and valleys that seemed to descend into endless darkness. The first part of the trial was one of navigation and endurance. Lyra led him to a canyon filled with jagged crystal formations that glimmered with energy. "You must reach the heart of this canyon," she instructed. "There is an artifact there that holds knowledge of my people. Retrieve it." Alex glanced down at his feet. The canyon was treacherous. Sharp crystal shards jutted out like spikes. Beneath them, deep chasms threatened to swallow anyone who slipped. He could feel the energy of the canyon humming around him, alive and aware of his presence. He took a deep breath and began. Step by careful step, he navigated the jagged terrain. Every movement required focus. Every wrong step could be fatal. The hum of the canyon seemed to respond to him, sometimes aiding him, sometimes testing him with subtle tremors that threatened to destabilize his footing. After hours of careful progress, Alex reached a chamber at the heart of the canyon. In its center, floating above a pedestal, was a crystal cube glowing with ancient energy. He approached it cautiously. The cube pulsed, reacting to his presence. He remembered what Lyra had told him. See with your mind as well as your eyes. He concentrated, letting his thoughts reach out to the cube. Slowly, a holographic map of the planet and its history appeared around him, showing events long past. He saw cities rise and fall, civilizations clash, and the wisdom of Lyra's people preserved through technology and understanding. "You have completed the first test," Lyra's voice said in his mind. "But courage alone does not suffice. You must also show intelligence and compassion." Before Alex could respond, the chamber's floor trembled. A fissure opened nearby, and from it emerged a creature unlike any he had seen. Its body was made of dark crystal, jagged and sharp with glowing red eyes. It moved quickly, charging toward him. Alex's first instinct was to fight, but then he remembered Lyra's words. He needed intelligence and compassion. He scanned the creature, noticing its movements were reactive rather than instinctive. It seemed to respond to his emotions. Slowly he crouched, keeping his hands visible. He spoke softly, hoping the creature could sense his calm. The creature hesitated. Alex realized it was guarding the artifact, not attacking out of malice. Carefully he stepped to the side, offering a path to the cube without confrontation. The creature studied him, then slowly moved aside. Alex approached the pedestal and lifted the crystal cube. A wave of energy pulsed through him, confirming he had succeeded. He felt a surge of pride, but he knew the trial was not over. Lyra appeared at the chamber entrance, her expression unreadable. "Well done, human. But now comes the second test, wisdom and strategy." They returned to the palace, where Lyra presented him with a holographic simulation of a rival faction attempting to invade her city. "This is a scenario you must resolve," she said. "Use your mind, your understanding of tactics, and your knowledge of my people to defend my city without causing unnecessary harm." Alex studied the simulation carefully. He noted the enemy's patterns, their weaknesses, and the layout of the city. Then he devised a plan that used the city's energy fields, natural terrain, and his own team's abilities to outmaneuver the attackers. As he executed the simulation, Alex felt a thrill of accomplishment. Each move required precision and foresight, but he successfully defended the city while minimizing damage to civilians and structures. When the simulation ended, Lyra observed him silently for a moment. Then she spoke. "You are clever, human. Your mind is sharp and you think beyond simple victory. You consider the lives and well-being of others. That is rare among outsiders." Alex bowed slightly. "I only did what I thought was right," he said. "That is what separates mere survival from true understanding," Lyra replied. The third and final part of the trial was the most challenging. Lyra led him to a remote valley, where the flora glowed faintly in the twilight. In the center of the valley was a small village of her people, their homes made of crystal and energy. "You will spend the night among them," she explained. "You must understand them, help them, and earn their trust. Only then will you truly have proven yourself." Alex approached the village cautiously. The inhabitants were wary, their eyes following his every move. He greeted them politely, explaining his purpose through gestures and simple words. Slowly they began to respond, some offering him food or guidance. A sudden scream shattered the calm. Alex ran toward the sound and saw a small child trapped under a fallen crystal beam. Without hesitation, he lifted it, freeing the child. The villagers watched, impressed by his courage and quick thinking. Over the course of the night, Alex helped the villagers in small ways, repairing damaged structures, assisting elders, and calming frightened children. Each act built trust, and by morning, the village regarded him with respect and admiration. Lyra appeared at dawn, watching him from a nearby hill. "You have succeeded, human. You have shown courage, intelligence, and compassion. You have proven yourself worthy of understanding my people and my world." Alex approached her, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I thought was right. And that is why you succeeded," she replied. "You act not for glory, not for power, but because your heart is aligned with what is just. That is what makes you remarkable." For a moment they stood in silence, observing the sunrise over the valley. Alex felt a connection not just to Lyra, but to her people, her world, and the responsibility he now carried. He realized that this trial was only the beginning. Greater challenges lay ahead: political intrigue, rival factions, and threats to the planet itself. Yet despite the uncertainty, he felt ready. He had faced fear, danger, and the unknown, and he had emerged stronger. And as he looked at Lyra, her eyes glowing softly in the morning light, he whispered once more, almost involuntarily, "You truly are the most stunning queen I've ever seen." Lyra's gaze met his, and for the first time, she allowed a faint smile to touch her lips. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it carried warmth, approval, and a hint of curiosity. Alex felt a surge of determination. He would continue to prove himself, not just as a human visitor, but as someone who could stand beside her and help her protect her people. The day ended with Alex and Lyra returning to the palace. Along the way, he observed her closely, not just her beauty, which was undeniable, but her wisdom, her patience, and the quiet strength that radiated from her every movement. He realized that what had captivated him initially was only part of her physical appearance. What truly made her remarkable was her mind and her spirit. As night fell, the palace shimmered under the light of the alien stars. Alex lay in his quarters, thinking of the trials, the villagers, and the moments he had shared with Lyra. He knew the journey ahead would be even more dangerous, but he also knew that he had the Queen's trust, and perhaps a deeper connection. Somewhere in the palace, Lyra stood alone, gazing at the same stars. She thought of the human who had faced her world's trials and emerged with courage, intelligence, and compassion. Few outsiders ever earned her respect, and fewer still had touched something deeper in her thoughts, a sense of possibility, of partnership, of hope. For Alex, the trials had proven one thing: he could survive, he could adapt, and he could earn the trust of a civilization far beyond his own. But he also realized that this was only the beginning. Greater challenges awaited, and the bonds he formed here would shape not only his destiny, but the destiny of Lyra's world as well. And as he drifted into sleep, he knew one thing with certainty: he would face whatever came next with courage, intelligence, and compassion, and he would do so with the most stunning queen he had ever seen watching over him. The crystal towers of Lyra's palace glimmered under the light of the alien sun, but an uneasy tension hung in the air. Alex had spent the past days learning the ways of her people, gaining their trust and completing the trials of courage, intelligence, and compassion. He thought he had seen the full breadth of the planet's wonders, but as he stood on the palace balcony, scanning the distant horizon, he realized the challenges had only begun. Commander Hayes's voice broke through his thoughts. "Alex, sensors are picking up unusual activity near the northern ridge. You might want to take a look." Alex nodded. "I'm on it." He followed the balcony to a vantage point where he could see the northern ridge, a series of jagged crystal mountains that loomed over the valley below. Shadows moved along the peaks, large and coordinated. His suit's scanners identified them as unknown alien forces. They were not like the creatures in the canyon. They were organized, armed, and clearly hostile. Lyra appeared silently beside him. Her expression was calm but focused. "They have chosen this moment to strike. I had hoped the humans' arrival would not coincide with this threat. But you are here." "Perhaps it is fate," Alex swallowed. "We need a plan. Observe first," Lyra replied, "then act. Impulse will lead to unnecessary loss." The alien forces advanced closer, revealing their true numbers. Hundreds of armored figures moved in formation, their weapons glowing with energy. Their intent was clear. They aimed to invade the palace and seize control. Alex's mind raced. He scanned the landscape, searching for natural advantages. The crystal terrain offered narrow passages, high vantage points, and reflective surfaces that could be used to confuse the enemy. He relayed his observations to Hayes and coordinated the palace defenses. Lyra raised her hands, summoning energy barriers around key sections of the palace. The light from her barriers shimmered across the crystal towers, creating a dazzling display. "Focus, human," she transmitted to Alex. "Your actions will decide the outcome." Alex nodded. He took a deep breath and activated his suit's tactical interface. Drawing on his training and the observations from the past days, he devised a strategy: divide and distract the attackers, use the terrain to slow their advance, and coordinate with the palace's energy systems to create traps without harming civilians. The first wave of attackers moved into the valley. Alex signaled to his team and the palace guards. Energy nets, activated by both human technology and Lyra's energy fields, ensnared the front line. Confused and disoriented, the attackers faltered. Alex used the opportunity to redirect their path toward narrow passes where their numbers became irrelevant. Lyra's eyes glowed brightly as she manipulated the palace defenses with precision. "You are clever, human. You think beyond brute force. That is why you are needed here." Despite the chaos, Alex maintained calm. He gave clear commands, anticipating enemy movements and ensuring that his team and the palace inhabitants remained safe. The attackers, realizing they were being outmaneuvered, grew frustrated and began making reckless advances. In the midst of the battle, a massive energy cannon aimed at the palace. Alex recognized the threat instantly. "Lyra, the cannon!" he shouted, though she could hear his thoughts perfectly. "I see it." "Prepare yourself," she transmitted. Together they acted. Alex identified weak points in the cannon's structure, while Lyra directed focused energy blasts to destabilize it. With precise coordination, they destroyed the weapon before it could fire, sending the attackers into retreat. The battlefield fell silent, but the tension remained. Alex knew this was only the first strike. The rival faction would regroup and attempt another attack, perhaps larger and more dangerous. He turned to Lyra. "Your people trust you, but they also trust me. We need to prepare for what's next." Lyra's gaze softened as she regarded him. "You have proven more than courage, human. You have shown wisdom and adaptability. I am impressed." Alex felt a strange warmth. It was not just pride in his actions, but admiration for Lyra herself. Her beauty, intelligence, and power were awe-inspiring. But it was her strategic mind and calm authority that truly captivated him. That night, the palace held a council meeting to discuss defense strategies and intelligence. Alex presented his analysis, highlighting weak points in the enemy's approach and proposing defensive tactics that balance safety with efficiency. Lyra observed silently, her eyes occasionally meeting his with an unreadable expression. When the meeting concluded, Alex stayed behind to discuss further with her. "The attackers are likely watching us. They will adapt. We need contingency plans. You think ahead, human. That is why you are here," she said. "And that is why I have allowed you this close." Alex hesitated. He had expected to be respected for his skills, but not for this personal acknowledgement. "Thank you," he transmitted silently. Lyra regarded him for a long moment. "You are not like others. You do not seek power or glory. That is why I am curious, and why I trust you more than most." The days that followed were tense. The rival faction launched sporadic attacks, each more daring than the last. Alex and Lyra coordinated defenses, blending human tactics with the alien technology and energy fields. The palace became a hive of strategy, observation, and preparation. Every attack tested Alex's ingenuity and courage, and every success strengthened the bond between him and the queen. During one skirmish, a group of enemy forces breached the outer perimeter, heading directly for a residential area of the palace. Alex reacted instantly, leading a small team to intercept them. Using traps, energy fields, and clever positioning, he managed to contain the threat without harming the civilians. Lyra watched from above, her eyes glowing with approval. "Your actions save lives, human. That is rare. That is why you matter here." Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the crystal towers in shades of orange and purple, Alex and Lyra stood together on a balcony overlooking the valley. The battlefield below was quiet for now, but both knew the enemy would return. "You are remarkable," Alex said softly, almost to himself. "Not just because of your power, but because of your mind and your people." Lyra turned toward him slowly, her gaze steady and intense. "And you, human, are more than your species often shows. Courage, intelligence, compassion. You carry all three. That is why I watch you, and why I allow you here." Alex felt a surge of determination. "I will not fail you. Not your people. Not this world." The night was calm, but both knew it was only temporary. Alex's confidence had grown, but so had the stakes. The rival faction would not give up, and the next attack could be devastating. He spent the hours before sleep reviewing strategies, studying the terrain and anticipating enemy movements. Lyra observed him silently from her chamber, a rare expression of contemplation on her face. She had ruled her people for many years, faced countless threats, and yet this human intrigued her. Few outsiders had survived more than a few days, and even fewer had proven their worth so clearly. Alex's courage, intelligence, and compassion set him apart, and she found herself considering possibilities she had not allowed herself to imagine before. As the stars rose above the palace, casting light across the crystal towers, Alex stood once more on the balcony, looking out over the valley. He knew the trials were far from over, but he also knew that together, he and Lyra could face whatever challenges awaited. And as he whispered softly to himself, almost as a promise, "You truly are the most stunning queen I've ever seen." Lyra's eyes found his again. Slowly, deliberately, she turned toward him, her gaze holding his, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. The night settled around the palace, but Alex could feel the weight of what was to come. The enemy would return, stronger and more cunning. But he also felt a new certainty, a determination that he could face any threat, protect this world, and earn the Queen's trust completely. Tomorrow, the battle would continue. But tonight he allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had survived the first wave, earned Lyra's quiet approval, and discovered a connection that went beyond words. For the first time since arriving on this alien world, he felt that he was not just a visitor. He was a part of something larger, something worth fighting for. And somewhere in the palace, Lyra considered the same. The human was not just brave or clever. He was unique, rare, and perhaps in time, he could be more than an ally. The night was long, filled with both tension and anticipation, but it also carried the first faint glow of hope. A hope that humanity could stand alongside the most stunning queen Alex had ever seen, and together, they could face the storms that awaited. The crystal towers of Lyra's palace sparkled under the morning sun, but the beauty of the scene could not mask the tension in the air. The rival faction that had attacked the palace repeatedly had gathered their full strength. Intelligence reports indicated they were planning an all-out assault, aiming to seize control of the planet. Today would decide the fate of Lyra's people, the palace, and the fragile trust that had grown between the Queen and Alex. Alex stood on the palace balcony, scanning the horizon. His mind worked rapidly, anticipating every possible move the enemy might make. He had learned much during his time on this planet. The ways of the land, the capabilities of Lyra's people, and the strengths of the palace's defenses. Yet he knew that the coming battle would test everything he had learned. Lyra appeared silently beside him, her expression calm but resolute. "Today you will prove more than courage, human. You will prove that humanity can face overwhelming odds and survive." Alex nodded. "I understand. We'll do everything we can to protect your people and your world. And that is why I trust you," she said. The palace guards, along with Alex and a small human team, positioned themselves at strategic points. Energy barriers hummed with power, and the crystalline towers reflected sunlight in dazzling patterns that dazzled and disoriented approaching enemies. The first signs of the attack appeared on the horizon, hundreds of armored figures moving in formation. Their weapons gleaming, Alex took a deep breath. Focus. Plan. Execute. The attackers reached the outer defenses, and the first wave collided with the palace's energy barriers. The shields shimmered under pressure but held firm. Alex directed the human team to assist, combining human technology with the alien energy systems. They activated traps along the paths the enemy would use, using the reflective crystal surfaces to create illusions and misdirection. Lyra's hands glowed as she controlled the palace defenses, sending targeted energy pulses to disable weapons without harming soldiers unnecessarily. Alex worked closely with her, their coordination seamless, each movement and decision complementing the other. "You have learned quickly," she transmitted to his mind. "I am impressed." Alex focused on the immediate threats, using strategy to divide the enemy forces and exploit weaknesses in their formations. They had numbers, but he realized they lacked the understanding of terrain, the adaptability, and the precision that he and Lyra brought to the battle. As the fight progressed, a massive group of enemy reinforcements emerged, attempting to flank the palace from a narrow canyon. Alex and Lyra spotted them simultaneously. "They're trying to break through the canyon," Alex said aloud. "Then we will trap them," Lyra replied, her voice calm and authoritative. Using a combination of energy barriers, crystal reflections, and clever positioning, Alex and Lyra managed to channel the reinforcements into a trap. The narrow canyon became a choke point, where the attackers were immobilized and confused. Alex coordinated with the palace guards to secure the area, ensuring no unnecessary harm to the enemy who were trapped. Despite the chaos, Alex noticed one figure standing apart, a commanding officer, larger and more heavily armored than the others. He was clearly directing the attacks, using advanced technology to communicate and coordinate. Alex realized that defeating this figure could disrupt the enemy's strategy completely. "That is your target," Lyra transmitted. "But be careful." "He is dangerous," Alex nodded. He formulated a plan, moving through the battlefield with careful precision. Using distractions, traps, and his understanding of the enemy's patterns, he closed in on the commander. The officer noticed him and charged, weapon blazing. Alex dodged and countered, using both human skill and quick thinking to disable the weapon. The fight was tense and fast-paced, each move requiring perfect timing. Finally, Alex found an opening. He used a precise energy pulse from his suit to disable the officer's armor temporarily. The commander fell to the ground, incapacitated but alive. The remaining attackers, witnessing their leader's defeat, began to retreat, confusion and disarray spreading through their ranks. Lyra observed silently, her eyes glowing with approval. "You have done well, human. You have turned the tide of battle through courage, intelligence, and precision." The battlefield quieted. The palace stood intact, and the people of Lyra's world emerged from their homes witnessing the victory. Alex felt a mixture of exhaustion and pride. They had won, but it was not by force alone. It was by strategy, adaptability, and careful decision-making. Lyra approached him, her presence commanding yet gentle. "You have proven yourself beyond any doubt, Alex. Not just as a warrior, but as someone who can think, adapt, and care for others. That is rare among humans." Alex looked at her, seeing not just the queen but the leader who had guided him, taught him, and trusted him.
"Thank you, Your Majesty."
"I only did what I thought was right, and that is why you have succeeded," she replied. Her gaze softened, a rare warmth in her eyes. "You understand more than technology or strategy. You understand people. You understand trust. That is what makes you extraordinary." The Palace Council convened to discuss the aftermath. Alex presented his analysis of the battle, highlighting the enemy's weaknesses and suggesting measures to prevent future attacks. The council listened intently, respecting his insights. For the first time, humans were seen not just as visitors but as equals, capable of contributing meaningfully to the survival of an alien civilization. After the council meeting, Lyra requested a private audience with Alex. They walked through the crystal gardens, the soft glow of the flora reflecting off the ground. The night was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos of the day. "You have earned my respect, Alex," Lyra said softly. "And more than that, you have earned my trust." Alex felt a surge of emotion. He had come to this world as an outsider, uncertain and cautious. Now he stood beside its queen, having faced trials, battle, and danger, and emerged not just victorious but valued. "Your trust means more to me than I can say," he replied. Lyra stopped walking, turning to face him fully. Her eyes glowed with a quiet intensity. Few outsiders ever earn this level of trust. Fewer still ever touch something deeper. A connection beyond duty or strategy. "You have, Alex," he realized what she meant. The bond that had formed between them over trials, battles, and shared responsibility was undeniable. It was built on respect, understanding, and shared experience. There is still much to learn and many challenges ahead, Lyra continued. But now I believe we can face them together. Alex nodded. I'm ready, Your Majesty, for whatever comes next. For a moment, silence settled between them. The crystal towers reflected the starlight, casting a serene glow. In that moment, Alex felt a profound sense of purpose and belonging. He was no longer just a human visitor. He was a partner in the defense and future of this world. Tomorrow we begin rebuilding and strengthening our defenses, Lyra said. But tonight, she paused, a subtle smile forming. Tonight we can acknowledge what has been accomplished. Alex smiled, feeling a rare sense of peace. He had faced trials, combat, and strategy beyond anything on Earth. He had proven himself not through strength alone, but through intelligence, courage, and compassion. And he had done so beside a queen whose wisdom, beauty, and strength captivated him in ways he could scarcely describe. As they walked back toward the palace, Alex glanced at the horizon, where the first hints of dawn were appearing. He knew the challenges were far from over. Rival factions, threats, and the responsibility of protecting a civilization remained. But for the first time, he felt certain of one thing. Together, he and Lyra could face anything. And as he whispered softly, almost to himself, "You truly are the most stunning queen I've ever seen," Lyra turned toward him, her expression unreadable for a moment before settling into a look of quiet approval. It was a look that spoke of trust, respect, and perhaps something deeper, an unspoken acknowledgement of the bond they had forged through trials and triumph. The palace stood tall. The people safe and the stars above reflected the promise of a future where humans and the people of Lyra's world could stand together. And in that future, Alex knew he had a place, not just as a warrior or a visitor, but as someone who had earned trust, respect, and a rare connection with the most stunning queen he had ever seen. The night deepened, but Alex felt a calm resolve. He had faced the unknown, proven himself in battle, and forged a bond that would guide him through the challenges to come. And as the palace rested under the alien stars, he understood that his journey had only begun, and that with Lyra beside him, he was ready for anything.